First off, I want to introduce myself. My name is Greg Yates. I'm an assistant commissioner for North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and we welcome you to the 20th annual Agriculture. This is a very special event that we look forward to every year. But before we get too started, I want to do a few things for housekeeping. As you recognize, we're not in the whole house building this year. That building is being renovated, so we're in what they call special events. These are things you have a little bit different layout. So you came in the back door right there, that is the main door. You will see emergency exits to my left and to my right in case of emergency. As far as restroom facilities, the restrooms are right out to my left here. If you need this, please use the exit at the back if you need to go out. Take care of the carpet here, there are some contents before we get your feet up. Before we get too much farther, I want to recognize the special guest that we have in the audience here today. Council State, Lieutenant Governor. Representative Jeff McNeely. Representative Alan Branson. Are there any other members of the General Assembly that I've missed? And I also do want to take this opportunity to recognize any of the Board of Ag members that are present here today. If you could please stand up. Thank you. You know, this forum is an event where we can come together and hear what the state fair is. And on today's agenda, we're hearing about an economic outlook, about the Ag Executive Program, a policy update, and a perspective from USDA. And we recognize a few people and give a few awards out. And last but not least, we get together from our Commissioner of Agriculture, my boss, Commissioner Steve Carson.
Good morning. Great, thank you. And I'm always excited to get this started. There's so many things that we do in ag across North Carolina that I think everybody needs to understand and know. And that message is hard to get out when you're 2% of the population that is actively farming and the 98% are our customers. So we need to continually let our customers know about the issues that we face and why it's so important to have good agricultural policy in North Carolina. And, you know, we've done this a long time now, and I don't know if we have ever come out of the time with so much uncertainty. The uncertainty remains. We've been through disasters, and you know, we kind of cleaned that up and worked on it. Then we get a snowstorm for all 100 counties in North Carolina, which is pretty historic. Even a little snow at home this morning that and people got to travel just a little, not too much, but I'm proud to be able to do this and bring people together. And I'm a farmer. This time of year, I am optimistic that this year will be the best year ever. And if you can't have that attitude beginning of the year, you can't farm. But we got to talk about a few things that are out there that are not looking all that good. Most of the time we try to paint everything with a rosy picture, but the paintbrush is kind of thin this year, so we're going to try to put it out there in terms that people understand what they could be facing, what today's environment is. And I heard something from the farm show yesterday that really made me proud. There were a lot of farmers from out of state that were here, and the people that knew, my people that work with the department, they told me, they said, you know, North Carolina is way ahead as far as where they are and where we are. And we are certainly jealous that we don't have these opportunities in our states. And, you know, that's what it's all about. We have never backwards. We build partnerships, but the main goal has been help our farmers stay in business and prosper. And when I hear that, I think that's success, and there are a lot of things that go into that, but that partnership part of it is what's paramount. From the farm groups, the commodity groups, the legislature, local governments, all of that plays into this success, and I'm glad to see a lot of you here today. It's good to see the Lieutenant Governor here, Lieutenant Governor Hunt. We thank you for your support. Knowing your family history and family ties, I know we can count on you to help us get through these rough times. There are a lot of friends here today and veteran farmers. We've been in tough times before. We're resilient, and we just got to button down even a little tighter than maybe we did before. And I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. So we follow us, and we will do our very best to help you get through this. There is a lot of strength and determination in this room. That's what it takes. And I've learned through life that when you put people in crisis and you put them in a bad situation, then you find out who they are. And I can truthfully say that the ag folks in this state have gone through this and gone through this, and they have passed with flying colors. And every time we go through it, we get stronger. So we're getting tough, pretty tough, even to the point of maybe steel right now. So we'll get it through this year, and we'll talk about policy issues here today that have got to be done that will get us into the future, and maybe talk about why we're in some of these positions, especially nationally and internationally. And I think that understanding is part of the solution. I'm encouraged that you are here today listening and wanting the way forward. We're going to get that way forward, and we're going to take the pride in agriculture that drives us every day. We currently definitely need a farm bill. And for any federal people listening, 7 years is too long to go between farm bills. That is the national policy that drives the success of agriculture. Think of what we've been through in 7 years. We've been through a pandemic. We've been through escalating costs, a worldwide upset in economics, and yet we're operating over something that is 7 years old. It can't happen no more. Do a federal farm bill and do it now. I'm reminded of a quote from Charlie Chaplin, and what he said is, nothing is permanent in this world, not even our troubles. So think about that, keep it in your mind, and we don't need to lose sight of this truth. I appreciate what every one of you in this room do for agriculture in the state, and in Lake North Carolina, the state that it is, and it is a changing state. There is no question about it. Some of this change we're not going to stop, but we've got to adapt to it and use it to our advantage instead of saying, woe is me, and so that's the attitude we've got to have. Today, listen closely to what today's speakers have to say. This is how we start the process of adapting. It's important that you have as much information as you can possibly get in today's world, and it comes in truths and sometimes untruths, and with social media what it is, be careful with what you take as the truth. I guess that's my best advice. So we're going to start this today, and we're going to start with a presentation of the code and pledge of allegiance. And I'm going to ask our Forest Service to come forward and present the code. And I do want to thank our state FFA officers for leading us in the pledge of allegiance and flag. And I thank all of the members of the FFA and their political work. They are an important part of the future of that in North Carolina, and I thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. One little piece of etiquette that I forgot to mention is that you wouldn't mind signing your voting license. First up on the agenda is something I always look forward to with this event, and that's economic outlet. And today we have Dr. Jeffrey Goldman, who is the Hugh C. Packer Distinguished Professor of Agriculture and Resource Economics at NC State University. In this role, he will teach and perform research on the broad area of economics and management of the food industry and fill an extension role assisting growers, industry, and policymakers on topics of pricing, marketing, management, and policy issues. Previously, he spent 4 years as State Fiscal Economist of Georgia for 34 years as Professor of Economics at the University of Georgia, where he taught classes on economics of the food industry, microeconomics, macroeconomics, and food policy. He has written 4 books, including a textbook on economics and management of the food industry, and about 100 scholarly articles. He is a regular columnist for Forbes and RoadThereMarkets.com, and a frequent economic expert on television and radio shows before becoming one state economist. Dr. Dorfman is a fellow of the Agriculture and Applied Economics Association and a former editor of the American Journal of Agricultural Economics. 2021 paper he co-authored was selected as the outstanding AJAAE Article of the Year. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Goldman.
Good morning, everyone. I've been told if I point on the left, that's what we're working. There we go. The commissioner begged me for some positive news. I'm going to do the best I can, but it's not easy. Okay, here we go. First off, I think it's good to know the U.S. economy is doing fine. The chart you see here is consumer spending. Consumer spending is currently growing by about 5% a year. Since inflation is about 3% a year, that means we're getting about 2% more stuff, right? 5% spending, 3%. We're Americans, that's what we want, is more stuff. So this is good. And if you look at the chart, you can see that that line is running pretty much flat. It's not going down. So the economy does not seem to be slowing down. You hear in the news a lot that consumers are running out of money. But this chart says they're not. Okay? I think we have to remember, the commissioner said a wise thing a couple minutes ago, that you've got to watch out and not assume that anything you see online or in the media is necessarily the truth. Okay? The media is always picking one side or the other. Right now, there's a lot of interest in trying to claim the economy is going bad. This says, no, not really. There we go. Okay. No, you are not in the way. Stay right where you are. If you were in the way, I would move. I mean, he's earned that right. All right, this chart shows consumer debt. The chart on the left is consumer debt, which you can see is rising, but at a perfectly normal rate. Interestingly, if you're curious why it has sort of a zigzag pattern, that's the average American spending 9 months and having the balance go up on their credit card. And then in February and March, people get their tax refunds and they pay their credit cards down. So every time that line dips down, That's people using their tax refunds to pay down their credit card debt. And then spends the rest of the year going back up. On the right chart, though, is consumer debt service payments as a percent of disposable income. So the first one tells you that we're borrowing more money. But the second chart shows you that we can afford it. If you look at that chart, the amount of our incomes we're having to spend to pay our car loans and our credit card bills is perfectly fine. It's quite low historically, and it's easy for people to manage. Now, you may occasionally see stories in the news about default rates rising. Credit card default rates are rising. Car loan default rates are rising. Bad things are coming. None of it's true. Well, I should take it back. It's true those things are rising. They're rising because during COVID, when the government passed out trillions of free dollars to everybody, default rates went to basically zero. They're just going back up towards normal now. Okay? Not anything to be worried about. All right. Here's the labor market. Now, I mentioned earlier that American consumer spending is going up faster than inflation, so we're getting more stuff. Economists love to talk about whether there's a recession or not, or whether there's going to be a recession or not. Average people don't care. People care about two things. Do I have a job? And do I have enough money to buy the stuff I want to buy? So we already saw consumer spending. We saw people are able to buy the stuff they want to buy. So then these charts show us jobs. We have one good news and one a little less good news chart. On the sort of top left, that's the unemployment rate. Unemployment rate is still quite low, for about 4.5%. Historically, that's considered full employment. And essentially everybody who wants a job has a job. So we're fine, and it's not particularly rising much. On the right, at the bottom, that chart tells you the percent of Americans that are working part-time, even though they would prefer to work full-time. Okay? So if you work part-time because you're a mom and you work while your kids are at school, but you want to get off at 2 o'clock and be home when they get home, this isn't you. Right? This is somebody with a part-time job, but they would like full-time hours. You can see at the far right of that chart, it's kind of been ticking up for the last year. So that's a little bit concerning, that there are more people who would like to get a full-time job and all they can find is a part-time job. So I'm kind of keeping my eye on that one. It's a good one to keep your eye on. All right, interest rates. Interest rates should decline during 2026. They're not going to decline that much, though. The federal government is simply running too big a deficit for interest rates to come down much. Federal government needs to borrow $2 trillion a year. That's a lot. And they always get their money first. So they get the first $2 trillion that's out there to be borrowed. That means there's less money left for all the rest of us to borrow. And so we have to pay a higher price for that money. That price is what we call the interest rate. So I think we'll see maybe about a 0.5% decline in interest rates during 2026, which is helpful, but not as much as, say, the president would like to see it go down. And unfortunately, the president would like to see lower interest rates, and the best thing the president can do to help that happen is to cut federal spending. And if we look at this next chart, this is federal spending. And you can see there's no progress yet on cutting federal spending. Okay? There's two giant spikes. Those are the two big rounds of free money during COVID. And then you can see it's kind of almost went down to trend, but not really. It stayed above trend, and it's going up at a steeper and steeper slope there. Okay? So far, we haven't really seen any improvement in fiscal sort of discipline at the federal level. Hopefully we'll see that soon. I don't see any sign of it, But we shall see. All right, so overall for sort of the general economy, what I see is solid economic growth, continuing low unemployment, a small decline in interest rates, and in general, unless something crazy happens on sort of the world geopolitical level, there shouldn't be any recession. Economy's in a pretty stable, solid condition right now. Okay, so having said that, let's see if we can move on to agriculture. This is where I would love to have good news for you. And I don't. When you look at, for example, USDA forecasts and predictions, the latest releases from USDA increased stocks for pretty much every commodity, increased production forecasts for pretty much every commodity, and none of the price predictions went up at all. We unfortunately are in a situation right now where harvests have been good in pretty much the entire world. And we just have supply going ahead of demand. And so I think the only thing that's really going to get us a big, meaningful increase in commodity prices is a crop failure somewhere. We need, not us, right? Some other country needs to have a bad harvest. Right? And until that happens, we're probably stuck in this range that we're in, where the commodity prices are just sort of fluctuating somewhere where on a good day maybe you can break even or make a little bit of money. Now, on the cost side, so here are some, Commissioner, I did try and find some good news. I did. So here's one chart. This is diesel prices. So diesel prices are down. Okay, that helps. That's good news, right? This is fertilizer and chemical prices. This has gone back up about 20-25% from sort of the 23-24 lows. So that's a little disappointing. And I think probably a lot of farmers are watching that one pretty closely. This is sort of a total production cost index for agriculture. And we had a big spike in sort of 21 and 22 when the prices of everything went crazy. And then you can see sort of 23, 24, we kind of bounced around above zero, below zero. This is sort of an inflation rate, and the horizontal line is right at zero. In the last, 9 months or so, it's been creeping up again. So I'm hoping that's just a blip and it's about to turn down, and we're just going to keep bouncing right around zero. Excuse me. But we're not really seeing production costs come back down from that big post-COVID inflation. It seems like the best we can hope is they're just going to stabilize where they are. So I did an exercise here where I took the NC State Extension crop budget for our major row crops. So you can see this is cotton, peanuts, corn, soybeans, wheat, sweet potatoes, and tobacco. Over the last 5 years, the weighted average, so this is weighted by acres, so whatever we grow the most acres of gets the biggest share in this average. Production costs are up 65% in the last 5 years. Okay. This isn't just some generic number. This is North Carolina crop agriculture. Okay. Anybody have their commodity price go up by 65% in the last 5 years? No. So that's a lot for farmers to absorb. And then on the right, you can see that's sort of estimated net returns. Now, this isn't anybody's actual net returns because these are from our crop budget. So we assume a solid yield, but most of you probably do better, and kind of an average price. But on average, net returns per acre are down $130 an acre. Okay. That's left most people making, if you're making a positive return per acre, it's sort of in the double digits, right? And it's, if you think about it, if you can't make $100 an acre, you need an awful lot of acres to make a living. So that's where we are right now. So the options are kind of you're very big and getting by very thin margins, or this is just crops, and it's just the major row crops. So if you're doing a specialty crop, or if you've got enough animals in your operation, right? Preferably feeder cattle. Then maybe you're doing okay. But if you're just trying to grow the major program crops, it is tough right now. Sometimes I can work it, and sometimes I can't. All right, labor. Here's some good news. I know the commissioner spent a fair amount of time complaining to Washington, D.C. about H-2A wage rates. So a lot of other people. We finally got some motion there, right? So this year, H-2A labor rates are going to be down about 20-25%. And that's going to matter a lot if you're a heavy user of that program. So if you're growing tobacco, if you're growing sweet potatoes, if you're growing Christmas trees, right? Some sort of fruit or vegetable operation where you're using H-2A labor, this could make a big difference. Okay, so those people are going to see some good news. That's probably the one piece of good news we've got. All right, this chart, this is a new one I discovered, and I think it's very interesting. The blue lines here are farmers. This is a national chart. This is return on assets in farming over about the last 50 years. And what this says is farmers over the last 50 years have made a whopping 2.7% return on their assets. Now, put that in perspective. Right now, I can go home, lay on my sofa, put my money in a money market account, and just watch Netflix all day, and I can make 3% on my assets. Seems like that would be a better option. Okay. However, over that same period, farmers have made an average of 4.8% return on assets on their farmland. Okay. So I mentioned gas stations and movie theaters here in this chart. Gas stations don't make any money on gas. Gas station business is all about you buying cigarettes and soft drink in the convenience store. That's where they make all their money. Movie theaters don't make any money selling people movie tickets. Okay? They make money when you buy popcorn. Okay? Farming has become a business like that, where you don't actually make any money farming, and you make all your money in real estate speculation. Now, the good news is, hey, at least you're making money, right? So one of the reasons our farmers have been able to stay in business for the last 50 years is because their farmland's been going up. So that's better than if it hadn't been. But we got to ask ourselves, is this sustainable? Is this a working business model where the thing you think you're doing isn't where you make your money? Right? So I think this is something we need to be thinking about, maybe be a little nervous about. All right. Now, I want to cheer people up in the room a little bit, make you feel better about yourselves anyway. Charts here. On the left, the blue lines are people who think the thing is affordable, and the red line said that's people who in a survey said it was unaffordable. So So the first two charts there are for housing. Okay? So only 40% of Americans think housing is affordable today. Second one is having a family. Only half of Americans think it's affordable to have a family. Over 70% of Americans, though, think groceries are affordable. Okay. That's due to you, right? That's due to farmers. So you continually doing your jobs better, being more productive, and to a certain extent only making that 2.7% return on your assets, right? So I want to give everybody a pat on the back and thank you and recognize you for that. And you can notice in the little bottom of the chart there, I put a little asterisk. And while I'm thanking the farmers and giving you a pat on the back, I did point out it also says, with an assist from land-grant colleges of agriculture. Okay, because I got a job and I want to keep it too. All right, questions?
Maybe I could do the story. I do want to comment that you were doing really good with the general economy, putting lipstick on that pig, but you kind of ran out when you got to agriculture. I'm going to have to get you some more lipstick. I guess one of the things that has concerned all of us is agricultural labor, and I do believe that if we can sustain this win on HUA labor, that this will be the biggest thing for especially crop growers that's happened in years and years and years. But remember, I said hold it. There's no telling how many courts this is going to have to go through, but all across the country, we're standing strong and we're prepared to go to any court, anywhere, and win. It's that important, to tell you the truth. So we're all together on that. But I wanted to ask you, one of the things that concerns me is total employment. Do we have the people to fill the jobs that we need? And it seems to me that when you have an underemployed economy, that's pure inflation. Is my assumption about right?
So it appears that we have enough workers, and what we've been seeing is even though the unemployment rate is low, there's still an amazing almost 20% of sort of working age Americans that are not what we call in the labor force. They don't have a job, but they're also not claiming to be unemployed and looking for a job. They're just home playing video games or sometimes stay-at-home parents. So they're working. So what we found is we can lure those people off the sidelines back into the labor market if the wages offered are good enough and when the time is right. So they kind of stay out on the sidelines, and then when you think, oh no, we're going to run out of workers, another 500,000 or 1 million people come off the sidelines. So far it's been working. But definitely there are fewer workers. One of the things that's been happening with President Trump is we're having a lot of immigrants, either willingly or unwillingly, leaving the country. And so there are fewer workers available right now. There's no doubt about that.
The other thing is you mentioned farmers making money on real estate, and that's where the major investment is in a farm. I'm one of the young farmers that had to come through the early 80s and the crash of the value of farmland, and I've been amazed, as bad as it is in row crops especially, but if you look at land prices in the Midwest, they have continued to go up. So the question is, are we going to hit a time that's bad enough that this bubble bursts and we go back to the credit not available for farmers to be able to operate, and any kind of land value that a farmer has goes down, that's a major hit to their balance sheet. So are we anywhere close to that, do you think?
I don't think so. So farmland prices definitely concern me, and some of the ones in the Midwest are just nuts. But for years, farmland prices have been well above ag value. So everybody seems to be paying sort of for the farming potential of land and some sort of development option price in hopes that one day down the road you will sell out and somebody can build houses. Here in North Carolina, that's probably about 50-50 of a lot of farmland. So I think it would make me very nervous if I were either a farm credit bank or a farmer to borrow more than 50% of the value of the land. But I don't think we're in a big bubble, and I don't think, particularly in North Carolina, where if you didn't see it, North Carolina just beat Texas for the most people moving to the state from somewhere else inside the United States. Here in North Carolina, we got so many people moving here that there's no way that bubble's going to burst. We could go kind of flat, which might not be all bad for agriculture if we could just stay right where we are.
Yeah. And you know, that brings to mind another big issue that we have is the disappearance of farmland in North Carolina, and we're right at the top of the nation in that happening. But I'm going to discuss that a little bit later, but it does concern me that we're losing so much farmland, and the difference in the price of farmland and development land in North Carolina is so great. You can't blame somebody that's getting ready to retire and with generational changes for selling that land. And I could never tell a person not to sell their land if they need the money because they're the ones that's got the title to it and they work for it. But at the same time, it is a major deterrent right now that this farmland being lost. So we'll have that discussion later.
Sure. And one good piece of news on that is that the amount of farmland we've been losing has been such that the increase in yields has been able to more than offset it. And so production in North Carolina agriculture rises every year, even though we're planting fewer acres. So as long as we, land grant colleges and farmers together can keep those yields growing that fast, we're okay. But we got to watch those two numbers.
And much thank does go to the land grant universities and our farm groups and commodity groups for helping our farmers be that productive.
Dr. Dorfman, we do thank you for what you do. Good news or bad news, we appreciate what you do. Next up on your agenda, you'll see there's a presentation on the North Carolina Ag Disaster Program briefing. We're having to call a little bit of a run this morning. David Smith is not able to be with us this morning, and so filling in for David is Caleb Bradford. Many of you may know Caleb. Caleb is one of my counterparts in the department. He is Assistant Commissioner for Western North Carolina. And I don't have a phone line to read for him, but you just have to trust me when I say it's kind of a big deal. So, with that,
thank you, Greg. That's a great introduction. I don't know if I can live up to that or not, but Dr. Dorfman, I appreciate that you gave, and certainly have some challenges ahead of us. Well, I don't know if you know it or not, I'm always planning director, Steve, stock market, and now I'm on about 300 points. So, maybe I can help bring that back to hear my presentation. But I want to take just a few minutes to give a brief update on where we are with the state disaster program. So 2024, as everyone in this room knows, was an incredibly challenging year from a production perspective in ag. And I think looking at the ag economy where we are highlights the importance of getting these resources out, this additional financial support. It highlights the importance of getting that support out to the ag community, to the farmers across our state. So a little bit of background here to set the stage on what led us to the program. In 2024, Hurricane Helene really brought catastrophic damage, unlike anything we've seen in North Carolina. 39 counties were declared residential disaster areas, and agriculture in this region in western North Carolina was hit very hard. One of the challenges was that there was very heavy production, especially crops in our region, with limited risk management tools available. So our estimates after the storm showed that there were ag losses of about $4.2 billion at the farm level because of that storm. In addition to Helene, in 2024, we had issues all across the state from a production perspective. So drought, additional tropical storm, and those losses totaled to another $5 billion, total to $5 billion combined and the losses statewide. So in response to that, the General Assembly appropriated funds for a disaster program. And really on the state side, we're really operating two disaster programs, one for Helene and another for statewide disasters. I want to take just a moment, I know we've got some members of the General Assembly here with us today. I want to take just a moment to thank you for your support in stepping up and providing the funding for these programs. The first appropriation totaled $311 million. $200 million of that was for Helene, an additional $111 million for statewide losses for other disasters. As a result of this, of the disaster declarations from the multiple events, every county in the state was eligible to participate in these programs, and all crops and farm operations were eligible to participate. Following that original appropriation, an additional $142 million was appropriated to add additional funds to the program. All right, so after we got the appropriation, the legislation set the application period, which was April 1st through May 19th of 2025. During this period of time, we launched the program, put the applications out, and worked with a lot of our partners, our ag partners across the state, to be able to get word out to growers, and also to help those that need to fill out the applications. Cooperative Extension stepped up in a big way. Every county office was available to help farmers get the applications in and navigate that. Our staff operated an hotline, and that hotline is still active today to answer questions and to help people through the process. North Carolina Farm Bureau provided funds to run radio campaigns to help us get word out everywhere that we could. And Farm Service Agency has been a great partner throughout this entire process. It's been seamless working between NCDA and the Farm Service Agency to get information we needed to make informed decisions about the program, and also to assist the growers with the applications. At the end of that application process, we had just under 8,000 applications between both programs. About 6,000 of those were for the non-Helene, a little over 1,000 for Helene, and you can see here the payments so far that we've done for both of those programs. In addition to the crop side, we've had 673 applications specifically for infrastructure loss in the Helene loss area. So you can see the crops on Helene, we had 49 total crops that were applied for, 49 different commodities. Total acreage, 82,000 acres. The largest piece of that was soybeans with 29,000, and we had a tenth of an acre applied for cereals. So in addition to that, we had big category of loss was on nursery crops, Christmas trees, apple trees, and so forth. There's about 300 of those in that specific category. And here's a listing of the variety of crops that were calculated for that piece of the program. On the statewide, the non-clean piece, 52 different crops, totaling 3.1 million acres. And again, the largest acreage within this group was soybeans, 1.2 million, and 2.5 acres of Brussels sprouts as the smallest. So a huge range of different commodities and sizes of operations that participate in this program. Again, a list of the non-clean category, some of the crops. So how did we calculate the payments? So yield data was compiled for every crop that applied for the program, and we used state level average pricing to establish the baseline for these payments. The percentage loss was determined by county, so every county had a different loss calculation to come up with the payment. These losses were calculated using information from all available sources, primarily from USDA risk management, where information wasn't available from USDA. We used information through our regional agronomist, Office of Extension, to be able to put together the best estimate that we could for the county level for each crop. So to date, on the lean side, on just the crops, 13.7 million has been paid. On the statewide non-lean, 167 million has gone out on the crops. For nurseries, on the lean, 80,873,000 has been paid. Non-lean, 15 million on the nursery side. And I want to point out real quick on the lean piece, especially on our loss estimates, the nursery industry took a huge hit. Of that 4.2 billion total estimated loss, well over $1 billion of that was just in the nursery industry. So these payments are proportional to the loss that these growers experience. On the lean side, in addition to the crops, we're covering infrastructure losses. As I said earlier, a little over 673 applications had infrastructure losses. We're in the process of calculating those losses now. Our staff are making calls, reaching out to every applicant in this category, collecting receipts, estimates, and working through that. Right now, we have about 125 infrastructure payments that are being processed. The payments have been submitted for processing and checks to be cut, so those should be hitting mailboxes within the next couple of weeks. This first round of infrastructure payments totals 3.7 million, and there's a lot more to come following that on the infrastructure side. Get the next slide. All right, so let's kind of highlights on where we are. We have launched a dashboard that is on our website. You can see the web address there on our rain disaster website. This dashboard is updated twice a week. So if anyone has questions or curious about where the funds are going or how much has gone out so far, this is a real-time update dashboard where you can look at some of that information. We've got a couple of slides here showing a little deeper dive, so you can separate by either the lean or the statewide. So this one shows what the lean piece looks like. There's the non-lean counties and information on that dashboard. And again, this is all available on our website. I think we've got a QR code there. I've got a QR code there. If you're interested, you can scan that and go to the dashboard to dive in and get some more information. Everybody have time to speak? I see one. All right, so that was the highlights on the state program. In addition to the two state programs, we're also working on a federal block grant. The block grant is going to be in addition to the standing FSA programs, the disaster programs. And again, FSA has been incredible to work with. Some of the standing programs that they're operating, you can see here, and then there's also some additional programs. Good for this some ad hoc programs that they're working through as well. So ECAP, the Farmer Bridge Assistance Program, the SDRP, and as we're going through these calculations, we're taking into account all available funding for each trial and trying to balance our payments with what's coming out from the federal side to be able to make the funds stretch as far as we possibly can. So on the block grant, on September 5th, Commissioner Troxler signed an agreement with Deputy Secretary Bailey with USDA for $221 million to come to NCDA for additional disaster relief. This program is specifically for Helene, and it's going to be in addition to our state programs. As we were working through creating this program, it's really important that we try to fill the gaps that we weren't able to cover through the state program. So you can see here the 4 categories that are going to be included. Timber loss, so this is going to be private timber loss experienced by the storm. Additional infrastructure funds. The 3rd category is market loss for commodities and value-added products. And then the 4th is future economic loss. So most of these are self-explanatory. On the future economic loss, that's going to cover long-term losses. So if, for example, if an apple grower in Henderson County lost an orchard, we help pay for the production loss and actual trees through the state program, through some other standing FSA programs. But when they replant, it's going to take 6 or 7 years to get that orchard back up to production level that they were at prior to the storm. So this is going to help bridge that gap and that loss of production. So where are we in the process? As I said, we signed the agreement in September. Since then, we've been working on the details of the actual work plan, how the program is going to be administered. We submitted our first draft, our final draft, I think the day before the federal government shut down. The government shut down for about 45 days, and so that put a delay on the process. Since the government opened back up, the conversation resumed, and we're currently nearing the end of that process. It's currently under leadership review by leadership at USDA, and we really hope to get that across the finish line very soon. Once we get the final work plan approved, we have the applications ready to go. The application process is going to look very similar to what we did with the state program. And when we get go, we're going to lean on our partners again, Extension and others, to be able to support farmers filling out those applications. The application process, we're going to try to keep it as streamlined as possible. So if you've already applied for the state program and we have some of that information, we're going to use everything that we already have as much as possible to simplify the process. Within that infrastructure category, there's a few pieces I wanted to highlight. Big loss is just farm roads, culverts, and bridges. We're going to be working with some of our conservation districts to be able to have technical resources to help us verify those losses and do calculations for payments. And additionally, ponds and ag water supplies are going to be eligible for that as well. As we look at it on things that we can't pay out of the block grant, we're leaning on the state funds. So we're really trying to utilize both sources of funds to be able to get as much money back in pockets as we possibly can. So again, quick and dirty overview of where we are. We've made a tremendous amount of progress, but we still have a long ways to go. And I want to take just a quick moment to thank the NCDA staff who are involved in this program, have dedicated a tremendous amount of time to getting us where we are. Without them, we certainly couldn't have done it. The Commissioner has instilled a culture of service here in the department, and these folks have stepped up in a big way. And when the Commissioner said this is our highest priority, we took it to heart and have really been doing everything we can to get these resources out to folks that need it. So with that, Commissioner,
Thank you, Caleb. Deputy David Smith was going to be here to give the presentation, but he had a vote this morning, and I thank Caleb for filling in. And David has got 54 years service with the department, and he's one that kind of prefers to be behind the scenes, but the farmers of this state will never know what he did taking this program on and guiding it 365 days a year, basically 24 hours a day. And I can't say enough thanks to the people in the department. My big ideas were one of their big problems, but I never asked them to do anything that they haven't done successfully. And this is just another example. And I went to the legislature with a request for $1.2 billion, and these weren't my numbers. The first thing I did, knowing the scope of this disaster, is I went and got two highly respected economists to do the evaluations. So when I went to the legislature, I knew they were going to look at me kind of cross-eyed, but these were actual economist numbers. And while I have not put together $1.2 million, there is $1.2 million at least going to be out there between our program at the state level. I think $445 million, $221 million that is coming through the block grant, but then also what FSA has done with their program. So we are getting that out there, but entering into this program with the block grant is going to be very, very difficult. When you start talking about infrastructure laws and timber laws, all of this has got to be very carefully evaluated, and we've been in that process, and there's more to it than just restoring the streams and the infrastructure. These farm roads are instrumental in us being able to fight forest fires in the mountains, and without them, it puts us in a double whammy with a huge load of debris on the ground, and then maybe not being able to get to it. I want to remind everybody this is not over with. $1 million is going to be years into recovery. I know a lot of our faith-based institutions have been a huge part of that recovery, and we hope that you take the time to volunteer and help these people. I know that the first time I saw it from a helicopter, I looked down and my thought was, this could not have happened. Not here, but it did. So it's been a lot of hard work, a lot of partnership. We have responded unbelievably in North Carolina to this, and we've had a lot of help on the outside. People from all across the country have contributed to help, especially our livestock farmers get through this with hay, fencing materials. So this has been a true partnership, and it's worked wonders. So we'll keep it up, and one day we'll look back and be proud of the effort that North Carolina put forward, and proud of the fact that we still care about people. So with Greg, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and Caleb, thank you. We had about an hour this morning to pull this together and give that presentation, so appreciate it. Next up on the agenda is Ryan Nix, and Ryan is going to give us an update on American Farm Bureau policy and a little bit about Ryan. Ryan is the Managing Director of Government Affairs at the American Farm Bureau Federation. In this role, Ryan manages the AFBF, Government Affairs Department, in the preparation and execution of strategies to implement Farm Bureau legislative and regulatory policy authorities. He has previously served as Director of Congressional Relations at AFBF, where he advocated on behalf of American farmers and ranchers on policy issues including federal land management, the Endangered Species Act, and the protection of private property rights. He has 19 years of service in agriculture and natural resources issues in Washington, D.C., having served on the staff of the U.S. House of Representatives on resources, as well as lobbying for the National Association of Counties and National Association of Conservation Districts. Yates is a 2003 graduate of California Polytechnic University, San Luis Obispo, obtained a degree in agriculture agricultural business with a minor in economics. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Thank you for that. I need to be mindful of my intros that I send. They can be a bit wordy, so appreciate that. I'm glad to be here, Commissioner Foster. Thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you to North Carolina Department of Agriculture for getting me out of Washington, D.C. for just a couple of days. So I was promised warmer weather. I'm not sure what this is all about, but I sure am ready for the spring, I can tell you that. I left my place yesterday with 4 inches of ice sheet across the property, and I had no idea when it's going to melt. So, things that we can look forward to, and spring is certainly one of those. So, again, I want to just thank everyone in the audience for being here. There's no other industry in the United States of America that has the foundation of the support networks that we have in agriculture, from 4-H to FFA to farm bureaus and our commodity organizations. We have a future in this industry because of you all and because people like you show up. So just thank you for that. And again, thank you for your engagement, be it with our North Carolina Farm Bureau or your commodity organizations here in the state. It's truly important for all of us to engage, in good times and in bad. A little bit about me. I've been in Washington for 23 years now, doing congressional affairs, Capitol Hill work, and lobbying work. It was meant to be a short-term stint, but we sort of caught the bug and have remained in Washington. It is a love-hate relationship. It is a lot of fun, but I'll tell you, each and every day I can wake up and work to advocate for agriculture, for farmers and ranchers across this country. It's a good day for me. That being said, we have a lot of, you heard from Dr. Orfman, we've got a tough ag economy. These are challenging times, and many of the solutions to these problems can only be found in our state capitals across the country and in Washington, D.C. And if your confidence in Washington, D.C. is greater than mine, God bless you. But we have a lot of problems that we need Congress and the administration to solve in a very, very timely fashion. And so the stakes certainly couldn't be higher. In terms of the ag economy, I think this is the worst ag economy that we've seen since the 1980s. As Dr. Dorfman spoke to this already, input costs are up, commodity prices are down, and certainly many communities across the great state of North Carolina and across the country are still feeling the impacts of recent disasters over the last several years. And certainly as we look to our friends even farther south of North Carolina, especially crop growers in particular, this freeze has been particularly damaging for many crops in the southeast. I'll talk a little bit about Washington for a few minutes. It is a very challenging time to get things done in Washington. My continued search for bipartisanship continues. It is a challenge to find bipartisanship, but there are opportunities in front of us where Republicans, independents, and Democrats alike can come together and solve problems on behalf of you and I. And there is certainly a growing list of challenges before them. I'll tell you, this is probably the most challenging environment in Washington that I have seen in the last 23 years. The margins in Congress are especially tight. In the House of Representatives, I believe Speaker Johnson is afforded a 1-seat majority at this point in time, which makes getting to yes very, very challenging. In the Senate, Leader Thune has a 3-seat majority. So while Republicans have majorities in both chambers, getting things across the finish line are certainly challenging. We also have midterm elections to look forward to in Washington this year, and midterm elections tend to create a silly season in Washington, which makes things especially even more challenging to get things done. Every member of Congress that I've ever met, one of the things that they want to do more than anything else is to be reelected. And so they're going to be especially mindful of taking votes and making statements in a way that will secure a victory for them in the November elections, which again can create some unique challenges for us in Washington trying to get to yes on certain big In terms of Washington, the last thing I'll mention is, we just wrapped up President Trump's first year in his second term in Washington. President Trump and the Trump administration has a big agenda. I would say they have the right people for the job. Certainly, Secretary Rollins, the USDA, is doing a fantastic job. She's an amazing leader, and she's truly committed to delivering for farmers and ranchers, and so we appreciate her leadership. I know you'll hear from my good friend Doug Hoskins here shortly from USDA, and again, we've got a great team across the federal government, and that type of leadership is desperately needed to get to solve some of these unique challenges. I'm going to shift a little bit to a few issues just to touch on. They're not just top priorities for the American Farm Bureau, but certainly for agriculture as we're looking to find solutions to problems. The Commissioner talked a little bit about the Farm Bill. As he mentioned, the last Farm Bill that was signed into law was back in 2018. Y'all remember back to 2018? I can't. It's been a long time. The world looked a whole lot different in 2018, and the fact remains that we're running on farm policy that is almost 7 years old. Farm Bill is supposed to be renewed every 5 years, and so we've been limping along on one-year extensions of the Farm Bill. Again, I mentioned those margins in Congress. It makes it very, very challenging to find a way to get to yes. Traditionally, Farm Bill policy has not been partisan in nature. It tends to be more regional in nature, but I think with the Congress that we have now, again, oftentimes we find nonpartisan issues find their way into the partisan bucket. And so we are working closely with both the House and Senate Ag Committees. I was on the phone yesterday with Chairman Thompson, Chairman of the House Ag Committee, and he assured us that we will have a new Farm Bill text later this month. So we're thrilled to hear that, and eager to see him move that bill through the process so that we can deliver a new 5-year Farm Bill to the American public and to agriculture. I will say, while a 5-year Farm Bill hasn't been done as a whole, we have seen some positive movements. Part of the Farm Bill was written and accomplished in the One Big Beautiful Bill that was passed last year. Unique, a very funny name, but yeah, it is the One Big Beautiful Bill that covered a wide variety of topics and policy areas and funding, but it did fund some critically important risk management programs and commodity program updates. We saw reference price increases, and so there was a number of positive things that were delivered in the One Big Beautiful Bill. But as Chairman Thompson likes to say, we've got to get the remaining sections of the Farm Bill done. So we're hoping to get that done in the weeks to come. Beyond that, we've got the long-term programmatic benefits that come with the Farm Bill. But with the ag economy the way it is, sometimes those long-term impacts aren't going to come. And so again, those benefits that we saw from the reference price increases in the One Big Beautiful Bill, they're not going to, we're not going to see those impacts at the farm gate until this fall. And so in the meantime, we've been asking Congress and the administration to assist in short-term aid. The bridge payments were rolled out by Secretary Rollins. We saw the administration roll out $12 billion of bridge payments. These are certainly helpful and timely. I don't think they'll be quite enough to cover the gap, but certainly appreciate what the administration has done to help solve some of the immediate needs. We're working closely with Congress and certainly with the administration of USDA to seek additional opportunities for more aid as we look and try to make the math work. As my daughter likes to tell me, Dad, the math isn't math. And so we are trying to figure out what those gaps are and how we can make business decisions at the farm gate now to ensure that we can have a successful season ahead of us. Again, I think there's more room for optimism there. But again, that $12 billion is certainly very timely. Of that $12 billion, $1 billion of that is carved aside for specialty crops, and we're hopeful that we can find some additional dollars. It's $1 billion spread across the nation, and specialty crops isn't quite enough. So we'll continue to work on that. So again, from a short-term and long-term, aid perspective, aid is important, it is helpful, and I think when we're dealing with the economy that we have now, it is essential. But again, farmers across the country, we're not just focused on the right now. Farmers want markets. They want an economy that can deliver resiliency in the long term. So we're looking at, how do we make improvements at the federal policy level that can provide long-term solutions. And one of those, again, we talked a little bit about farm labor. Farm labor continues to be a perpetual problem across the country. As I meet with farmers in every state, in every county across the country, they tell me farm labor is the biggest issue. The lack of access to labor, and certainly we have programs like the H-2A program, which is absolutely a beneficial program where we can't find domestic labor. H-2A is certainly critical, but we all know that there are problems with the H-2A program, and certainly we've seen the wages in the A word, the adverse effect wage rate go up year after year after year. That wage methodology has been incredibly challenging to be able to afford access to foreign labor. I will give a nod to Secretary Chavez Dreamer, the Department of Labor. She has done fantastic work to try to make some regulatory improvements to not only the wage methodology, but the regulatory framework for the H-2A program to the extent that they can. And we will see some reductions in the cost of the program in the short term. But long-term reforms are needed, and we need Congress to engage. For years, it's been a chicken and egg kind of a problem with getting Congress to act on labor reform. We've been told, well, we got to fix the problem at the border before we're going to help you with your labor problems. And I'm excited to say that it seems that the border problem has been solved. Border crossings are at an all-time low, and so we have been engaged with Congress directly and reminding them that now that the border crisis has been slowed or stopped, the time is now to be able to secure major changes to the H-2A program. And Chairman Thompson, I mentioned Chairman of the Ag Committee, is working on a farm bill. He's also working on a comprehensive labor reform bill in a bipartisan fashion. He's got a bipartisan working group working on a new bill, and he told us yesterday that we should be expecting that in weeks ahead. So we're excited that he's doing everything he can to be able to lay out a roadmap for some positive changes. With securing some changes in labor, I think the broader issue of bringing input costs down, ultimately is the goal. As commodity prices have fallen, I think farmers can take a season or two with lower commodity prices, but you can't do it when those farm inputs are through the roof that we've seen. And so, again, I think these changes in the A-word and in the H-2A program can provide some relief. But again, I mentioned long-term policy changes are needed to be able to provide, I think, long-term resiliency. We talk about supply globally. As Dr. Dorfman mentioned, we've seen very successful agriculture across the globe. You look down in Brazil and Mato Grosso, we've seen our major competitors in soybeans and corn continue to produce at record levels, which again have deflated commodity prices for major row crops. So again, I hate to wish ill on some of our major global competitors, but certainly that is one way to increase commodity prices is to have a bad season in Brazil. But I think at the same time, we're also looking at ways that we can increase domestic demand for U.S. commodities. And so one way that we can do that is we've been spending a lot of time on biofuels, E15, year-round E15 and ethanol blends, as well as sustainable aviation fuel will provide increased demand for American-grown corn and soybeans. And so that has been something that we have been actively working in the last several months with Congress is to get a year-round E15 fix. We were really close. As you may have heard, Congress just finally almost finished their appropriations for this current fiscal year. Unfortunately, they weren't able to secure that year-round E15 fix, which would increase demand for domestic commodities, but also deliver at the pump for every consumer across the country. They couldn't get it done. So what does Congress do when they can't get something done? They create a committee. So now we've got a committee that's going to be meeting over the next few weeks, and hopefully they can find a path forward on E15. rules globally to level the playing field for American industry, including agriculture. And so we are pleased, we are eager for Ambassador Greer and the team over at USDR to finalize these trade deals to secure new markets for American agricultural products and ultimately increase demand for American farm agriculture. So we've seen a number of really positive announcements come out of USDR. Those negotiations continue, and so as we work on the domestic side of the policy as well as globally, we are hopeful that we will have a bright and resilient future for American agriculture, despite the current slump we're in. So I think there is optimism. We can get these challenges done, but it takes all of us working together, working in one voice in agriculture to be able to advocate and get our elected leaders to get the job done. So again, I appreciate everything that you do, appreciate the hard work of American agriculture, certainly North Carolina agriculture. But we have some reasons to be optimistic. As I look around the room, I see our FFA folks here and 4-H kids. There is such optimism for the future of agriculture and our young people. And so again, I think there's hope for the future. We should have a bright future in agriculture in this country. And on behalf of the American Farm Bureau, certainly the North Carolina Farm Bureau, we are eager to continue working with y'all to be able to deliver and solve some of these tough problems, be it here at Raleigh or in our nation's capital. So again, Commissioner, appreciate you having me here today. And again, thank you for all that you do.
Franklin, we thank you for being here today. With all the problems we've got, it's awfully good to have a strong organization like the National Farm Bureau to carry these things through. And I do see this labor thing as the number one issue and probably the biggest thing that's happened to ag in a long time. So we're all standing behind you. So get those warriors sharp, send them out there, and we'll be right there standing with them. And by the way, I heard you talk about Washington and those kind of things. We welcome you to North Carolina like we have welcomed. There's too many people that have come down here, but you got to leave your weather behind. All these people from the Northeast that have moved away from the cold weather and the snow, and the first thing they see is 22.5 inches in parts of North Carolina, record cold, so leave it behind. And I did want to tell you that I've never caught Potomac people. To me, it's akin to yellow people. But I'm awfully proud of the people that we do have willing to make a sacrifice and endure what you have to endure for the good of everybody in the United States. So I wanted to give you that personal thanks.
All right, next up on our agenda, we get to hear a perspective from USDA. And I'd like to welcome up to stage Dudley Hoskins, who is the USDA Undersecretary for Marketing and Regulatory Programs. Now, if you would mind coming up while Brady's by. Hoskins was nominated by President Trump to serve as the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Undersecretary for Marketing and Regulatory Programs on January 20th, 2025, and was sworn in on September 30th, 2025. Dudley is a native Texan and most recently served on the Senate Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry under Chairman John Wayne. Previously, Dudley worked for the American Sports Council, Crop Life of America Rise, and the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture before joining USDA in the first Trump administration as a senior advisor to then Secretary of the Dudley earned his undergraduate degree from Tulane University and Juris Doctorate from Texas A&M School of Law. Please join me in welcoming the Undersecretary to the Senate.
I do want to give you a special thanks for coming today. And Dudley and I go back a long ways. Going back to my time as the president of NASDA, and he was there, and we struck up a good friendship, and I recognized his potential at that time. Didn't realize he would end up being an Undersecretary of Ag, but we are very proud of you. back in my brain. I think you have a North Carolina connection. Is that right? UNC Chapel Hill. Is that right? But that's okay. I can tell you that I am going to the Spine Center at UNC Chapel Hill now, and they are tackling the problem that others wouldn't. And they are much better at doctoring than they are playing football. The old Belichick ain't got nothing to do with this group. I'm going to let them do the doctoring, and we at NC State will do the vet and the animals and the crops, and I think it's a good mixture. So even if you are a Carolina graduate, you are welcome.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. I think thank you. I'm not sure. No, I think thank you all for the opportunity to be here today. I think I heard right. This is the 20th annual Ag Development Forum, and that's just incredible to me. Just an incredible, just convening and how important it is. But it's a privilege to be here today on behalf of USDA to share a few observations on kind of the latest and greatest. I want to say Commissioner Troxler put together a really incredible slate of speakers today. And he was insistent that I tell you I am not one of those. But Secretary Rollins sends her regrets and regards. She wanted to be here today. Instead, you got me. But the good thing is I wrote her speech. So I literally could just read it verbatim for y'all. Maybe I'll just start. So good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, it's not the afternoon. Need to clean that up. But first and foremost, I want to thank Dudley for the incredible and flawless and perfect job that he was doing all day, all by himself, with no help from anyone, every single day. It just kind of goes on like that for like 45 minutes. I guess a little bit of levity is good. But we know what's going on in agriculture right now. It's not a laughing matter. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of headwinds. Even when everything is going right, when we have low interest rates, low input costs, good weather, no crisis, no animal disease outbreak, no pest stressor, even under those hypothetical, non-existent circumstances, producers have to work their tails off, and they have to get lucky to make a living. I wasn't going to come here today just to read out a report on activities, but you know, high-path AI is something that's front of mind for all of us right now. The biosecurity part of that equation is just paramount. We know we've got a huge virus load in the environment. We know we're going into spring migratory season. We know we're going to be facing challenges. Please help us continue the work you all do, whether you're layers, broilers, turkeys, dairy, or some other production system. We're all at risk of transmitting high path. So vigilance and biosecurity is just paramount. And I'll get off my soapbox here, but thank you, commissioners, you and your team, the work you all do with extension, the education, the outreach, the prevention. That matters. It's real, and we're going to need it going into the migratory spring season. And it's not just high path. I mean, we can talk about screwworm all day if we wanted to. That's a 24/7 mandate right now. We're working day in, day out with our partners in Mexico. We're trying to prevent the movement of that fly north inside of Mexico. We're dealing with challenges there, environmental, illicit movement of cattle. It's a challenge, but the Secretary has us at our post on that issue every single day. And those are just the two that we hear about or talk about kind of in the regular news cycle. We know ASF is just around the corner at any given moment. We know EHV1, FMD, pick your animal disease. There's thousands of plant pest stressors that could cripple our production system. Our folks are working with the states, with CBP every day to interdict those risks at ports of entry. But that's real. And that's when everything is not going perfect. So we recognize that, we know that. And we all know Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Yesterday evening I was visiting with somebody
kind of a semi-father figure for me, but he was telling me about some of his life experiences and some of the challenges he's been through. And he said Murphy was an optimist. So just think about that for a minute. But that's, we all have challenges. Some of them are God made some of them, man made some of them, but they're real. And they impact your production system every single day. As long as we have good people doing good work, we've got a chance. And that's really what I wanted to talk to you all about today. People are policy, people are programs, people are partnerships. And we rely on that every single day at USDA. We have to. I want to talk about the commissioner just briefly here in a minute. But first I want to talk about some of the work and some of the people that do that work that are not necessarily inside the farm gate. There are people with the mission and the mandate to mitigate those animal diseases and pest stressors that do not just devastate your operation and your bottom line, but potentially put you and your family out of business for generations to come. People with the mission and mandate to help your family market your products and help you make it to the next growing season. There are people with the mission and mandate that we're trying to give you the decision whether or not to continue to stay in agriculture, to continue to produce the world's most abundant, most affordable, safest food, fiber, and fuel, and to do that, it's to meet those challenges, to have that opportunity. Anybody that's going to do that work, we want you all to make the decision to do it. Not the banker, not the marketplace, not our foreign competitors. And the people I'm talking about are some of the people at USDA. I'm talking about the people at the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service and the people at the Ag Marketing Service. And maybe even more so our partners at the North Carolina Department of Ag and Consumer Services. Our mandate at USDA is to try to make your job a little bit easier. And even though Ryan was quick to point out all the things we messed up in the last few months, we're actually still trying to make things easier for y'all. We want to facilitate that growth and prosperity for your operation. We want to do that for the folks here in North Carolina in partnership with the Commissioner. We want to do that for the producers across the country. We need to do it, but we need partners to do it. And I just want to briefly pause and say thank you to my USDA career colleagues who deal with those challenges every day and sometimes don't get the recognition that we owe them. In terms of partners, we don't have a stronger partner than North Carolina with the Commissioner. He's been a bulwark for North Carolina agriculture. He's been a tireless advocate, a fierce ambassador, and not just for the people in this room in North Carolina, but obviously for our partners across the country. We all benefit from the leadership, from the research, from the engagement that folks like the Commissioner lead here in North Carolina and across the country. I'm going to say without his consent, I think even the Commissioner would acknowledge he doesn't do it all by himself. Zane Hedgecock is here. Zane is my favorite artist in North Carolina. Kristen Wagner's here. She always brings a smile to a knife fight. But these are two of my favorite people that I got to know and work with in different capacities. And it just speaks to the culture and the commitment of mission that comes out of North Carolina. So we're grateful to you, Commissioner, for facilitating that. In my capacity at USDA, I have the honor to work with APHIS and AMS. They're really good at doing their job. They're not really good about talking about it. But, you all know when we drop balls, when we break something, because we hear about it directly and loudly from the Commissioner and his team, and we're grateful for that. We want that bullhorn going that makes
makes all of us better. But what you may not know is what the folks at USDA and APHIS and AMS do when they don't drop balls, when they don't break stuff. And those are the things, the catastrophes that don't happen, the market access that isn't shut down. I'm so grateful for the work they do. And whether we're talking about protecting your facilities, your operations from animal and plant health risk, or ensuring market news reporting, price transparency across hundreds of different marketplaces, meat, egg, and cotton grading, and even tobacco grading, which I don't think I'm supposed to talk about up in DC, but feral hogs, organic certification, bird control at airports, the stream of commerce, all those things are happening every minute of every day. And it's not because of people like me, it's because of the people you don't know and you don't see, the career officials at USDA and our partners in North Carolina. I think in my role, my mandate is to try to give APHIS and AMS the time, capacity, and resources to do the work we all want them to do. And we're trying to do that. I think what we need more than anything right now is your help to help us and our partners, because we're going to have not just the challenges of everything we're seeing in the marketplace and all the things that come with animal and plant and pest issues, but challenges with just capacity. And that is also including resources. So help us, whether it's biosecurity, whether it's the vigilance of just looking out for your neighbor, your partner. Help us keep an eye on what's most important. Help us meet our mandate. I guess, Commissioner, with that, I'll probably just close, but I do want to thank you personally for some of the things you've done for me that you don't even know you've done. And I feel like anybody that gets to be in your presence, we are better off for it, whether we want to be or not. So as we continue to work at USDA on behalf of American agriculture, we'll continue to be in your presence. So thank you.
Debbie, I can't tell you how proud I am that you are where you are, and I know you bring a state's flavor to the USDA, and you know many of my friends that are commissioners across the country, and I do appreciate it. But there's one thing I do need, is I need your personal cell phone number. And I promise not to use it except when I need you with me all day, every day. But our former friend Michael Hughes, who became an undersecretary, tried to give me Junior South's cell phone number, so I don't want Junior's number, I need your number. And you mentioned knowing my staff, and I've got the best staff in the country, there's no question, but I have a policy. If you try to steal them, Zane will cut your hands off. But I do appreciate it.
Well, speaking of cutting, I left this out. I should have started this. While I'm standing back there, I saw Chrissy Wagon. Chrissy came over. She's like, I can't believe you showed up. These people are going to run you out of town. Where's our block grant money? I said, well, I've been calling the commissioner all morning. He hasn't picked up once. No, sir, I've duly noted. We are working on the block grant. I know it is in leadership review. We are working to turn that around as expeditiously as possible. That matters as a lifeline. That is not, we're not sitting on that. It's just, it is incredible what it takes to get some of these things improved and out the door. But we hear you, we're on it, and hopefully have something for you soon.
Yeah, I heard the block grant was in leadership review, so I called Deputy Secretary Stephen Bates and said, you know, you're about as high up the line as I can get in leadership, so how about send the money?
I will remind the judge.
Thank you.
Secretary, we appreciate you taking time out to come today. And Commissioner, good news, we're ahead of schedule, so you got plenty of breathing room. I'm going to turn things over to you and let you have the spotlight.
Every year we honor and recognize the Exporter of the Year, and I have a double on it this year as we're recognizing two companies for their work in the tobacco export arena. The Exporter of the Year award is the highest honor presented by the marketing division, and it recognizes North Carolina businesses that work cooperatively with the department to foster successful export opportunities. And today we are recognizing Alliance One North American of Wilson, North Carolina, and Universal League North Carolina North America of Nashville. Look at North Carolina's history, and if you go back and find that our first export, not only in North Carolina, but probably in the country, was tobacco. And exports of tobacco have remained so vitally important to the state's economy. And while tobacco has lost some of its shine as far as the amount of money it generates, it's still just as important as it ever was when you look at diversity and the things that tobacco provides to the state in agriculture. And I am lucky to have a strong relationship with both Alliance One and Universal League, and they have been extremely helpful in our marketing efforts around the world. Both companies have helped connect our staff with key contacts internationally and also provided global market insights. I go back to last September and a trip we made to Switzerland, and they were both vitally important in the success of that. And when I say the success of that, probably that was a very important mission as far as not only last year, but this year. And as a result of that, the amount of tobacco that we had hanging around our neck because of China pulling out of the market was taken up by these companies and others. So we don't have that thunderbolt, so to speak, hanging around our neck. They are key players in the international tobacco arena, and I lean on them for their insight and the contacts that they have to be able to do some of the things that we've been able to do to help open markets to opportunities around the world. That has been especially important with the continued uncertainty in global marketplaces for tobacco. And over the years, it's kind of been a roller coaster. We got China into the market and it kind of stabilized the market. But then with the tariff wars that are going on, it's been a roller coaster. And I look forward to be that way for at least short term, but I hope we get this stabilized in the future. North Carolina and tobacco do have an inseparable history and connection, and that continues today. Across the state, tobacco has built cities, funded universities, hospitals, supported rural economies, and helped families put their kids through college. And I've always said that tobacco has educated more kids in North Carolina than any other crop. And there were two reasons. First, it gave families disposable income to send their children to college. But also, after a kid has worked on a tobacco farm from the time they're this high until they get ready to go to college, in a lot of cases, they're ready. And the good news is they have learned everything on that farm that they'll ever need to be successful in life. And Sharon and I have gone through that with raising two sons on the tobacco farm. And I gave them the opportunity to come back. But I said, you know, if you're good in the study or you're good at sports, I understand. Both of them have been very successful, and now when I ask them to do something around the farm as they did it, we're kind of overeducated now, so that's the downside. Much has changed, but the way tobacco remains an important crop in North Carolina, leading the nation in the production of food-grade tobacco, that has not changed. And we're fortunate to have offices for both of these honorees here in North Carolina, where I know the very best tobacco in the world is grown. Alliance One North America is part of Alliance One International, where they're independent leaf tobacco merchants serving the world's cigarette manufacturers. And going back in time, Alliance One was formed through the merger of Malone Incorporated and Standard Commercial Corporation, who were both world leaders in tobacco processing. And in the heyday, these were two of the companies that you would see in line purchasing tobacco. Malone Incorporated was the result of a merger of Dibble Brothers Incorporated, which was out of Danville, Virginia, close to me. And it was actually founded in 1873. And Monk Austin Incorporated was founded in 1907. Standard Commercial was founded in 1910 as a leaf merchant specializing in oriental tobacco products from the Mediterranean region. And prior to the merger with Malone, Standard was the third largest independent leaf tobacco merchant in the world with tobacco sales in 85 countries. So when I say these folks are great industry contacts, this has been built over hundreds and hundreds of years. And Alliance One selects, buys, purchases, packs, stores, and ships leaf tobacco with processing facilities around the world. The company purchases tobacco grown in over 35 countries and serves manufacturers of cigarettes and other tobacco products in more than 90 countries in the world. So today, I am proud that we are joined by Matt Drake, Director of U.S. Procurement, Crop Science, and Value Chain, on behalf of Alliance One North America and its President, Scott Gupton. And Scott, unfortunately, could not be here today, but he is a great friend and a great help in marketing our tobacco around the world. So Matt, I'd like you to come up and receive this award and make a few remarks.
In the seat. In the seat. Yeah.
First off, Commissioner, thank you for having us here today. Thank you for this honor. It's a great privilege to be here. And to start out, since Alliance One and Universal are sharing this award together, Clay, I thought I'd pick a quote from your new favorite basketball coach, Will Wade. Y'all know Clay is a die North Carolina fan. But Will says winning happens long before game day. It happens in your habits. I think this truly summarizes the actions of our growers, the NCDACS staff, and our customers at Alliance One. So on behalf of Alliance One North America, thank you to the North Carolina Department of Ag, Consumer Sciences, and to Commissioner Troxler for this tremendous recognition. It's truly an honor to be here, and it just shows all the amazing leaders we have in North Carolina. This award is not a reflection of you personally. It is the result of a collective effort. First, to our customers across the globe, thank you for your long-standing trust and partnership, your confidence in the quality of U.S. tobacco and agricultural products inspires us to hold up the high standards in everything we do. To the North Carolina tobacco growers, this honor belongs to you as much as anyone. You are the backbone of the supply chain. You are dedicated, resilient, committed to excellence year after year. Your work sustains rural communities, supports agricultural businesses statewide, and ensures that North Carolina remains a global leader in agricultural exports. I want to also acknowledge Commissioner Troxler and his team at North Carolina Department of Ag and Consumer Sciences. Their leadership, whether through trade advocacy, disaster response, championing export opportunities, NCPA helps create the environment that allows companies like ours to compete and thrive on the world stage. And to the incredible Alliance One and Alliance One North America team, my deepest thanks. Your dedication, innovation, and commitment to doing things the right way make recognitions like this possible. Whether in the field, in our facilities, in our offices across the globe, you show what teamwork and purpose can achieve. This award is a reflection of your effort and your integrity. As we look ahead, we remain committed to supporting North Carolina growers, expanding international markets, strengthening the relationships that make our industry so special. Agriculture is built on partnerships, and I'm proud of the work we do together to represent the state and the people around the globe. Thank you again for this incredible honor. It is a privilege to serve this community, this state. Mr.
Man, we are honored to have you here today, and we thank you for all the lives what it does for the farmers of North Carolina. Next, I want to recognize Universal League, which was founded in 1918 in Richmond, Virginia. They have a long history when it comes to being a trusted global supplier of premium tobacco. The company is a global manufacturer who sources, processes, and supplies tobacco worldwide. Universal Leaf North America operates in the U.S., Canada, Guatemala, Mexico, and has its global corporate headquarters in Richmond, Virginia. Its regional headquarters are here in Nashville, North Carolina, where it operates a modern ISO certified facility that is one of the largest and most technology advanced tobacco processing sites in the world. Universal Leaf serves as a link between farmers and manufacturers, sourcing and processing leaf tobacco to the exact specifications of their customers. It supplies 4 major tobacco varieties that include flue-cured, burley, Oreo, and dark tobacco. Each variety lends its own flavor, aroma, and burn characteristics to the final product. Universal Leaf has operations in over 30 countries and on 5 continents, which provides a worldwide network for tobacco. You heard me say industry contacts, we got it covered with these 2 companies. Universal Leaf links to its deep roots in North American communities through the company's Universal Leaf Foundation. The foundation supports local initiatives by funding community groups, sponsoring events, and encouraging employee volunteerism. It promotes good agricultural practices and fair labor standards and invests in its infrastructure, education, and health programs that enhance the quality of life. Today, we've got somebody here to accept this award, President of Universal Leaf North America. Just so happens I have known him since the early 1970s, and he actually started as a tobacco buyer on the market that I sold tobacco on, so he has bought a lot of my tobacco, and I have already prepped him not to tell true stories on me today, and I will limit his comments. So, Clay, how about you coming up and accepting this award? 70s. How old do you think I am? It was the early 80s. Everybody, works on this thing. I'm reminded of what you said earlier. Good folks working together, good things have happened. We have passion, and a lot of people out on the roads know that I particularly have a real passion for the growers and trying to do everything we can to keep the growers in a sustainable way. Because there's one thing I learned a long time ago: without the growers, there's not a whole lot of need for us. And so everything starts with the growers, and we appreciate what you do, the work, the effort, and the attempt by us to try to get you everything we can on your behalf to keep it sustainable. The other ones I'd like to thank, Matt touched on it, and it's not need to be repetitive with a lot of this. The co-workers that are here with me today, and all of our employees that make things happen, couldn't happen without them. And it's all a collective effort on all of our behalf. We've got some challenges. This year's not going to be any different than what you and I really took the task going back to 2018, where it's been a really dedicated working effort to provide what we need to do to keep us going in the right direction. And he and I spent a lot of time together. Zane has to take a lot of my texts and phone calls, and Dev's been super to work with as well. You may have to get back to Europe again. I hope not. I hope not. But again, thanks to everyone that supports us, and we try to support you. And it seems like to me that every awards ceremony I see now, it seems that people seem compelled to end with a political statement. I feel compelled to kind of sort of do the same thing, and it's directed at you, Commissioner. He is the strongest advocate for what we do, agribusiness. He is stalwart, has already been mentioned, and the true exporter of the year is Commissioner Troxel. Not only this year, but every year. And we can't thank you enough for what you do. All right, Clay, I thank you for that, and I probably won't have time to talk to you or text you today, but there are very few days that go by that we're not talking about tobacco somewhere in the world. And we've traveled together to get things done, and we will continue to do that. And what did you do? Oh, you did those, okay. Well, while you're here, stop. I want to introduce Beth Farrell. If you don't know her, she is our tobacco go-to person in the Department of Money for many years, but I doubt there's a more knowledgeable or more passionate person in the country than she is when it comes to tobacco. And she's not a blue now. She actually came out of the mountains of North Carolina, and they produce burley tobaccos, but Beth, I can say that thanks to you. And also Kathy Long, and we have traveled around the world on many occasions, not only markets for tobacco, but other products. And anybody that wants to steal, she's the best, so don't try. But thank both of you for what you do. invite the North Carolina Farm Bureau Communications Director, Linda Loveland, to come up and join me in a conversation. We went to a kind of a conversational kind of format a couple of years ago about the state of ag, and I think it's much more effective to do it this way, just have an informal conversation, a question and answer section, and I've asked her to try to lead me in the right direction. And Linda, you're a member of the press, right?
Yes, I am.
And I recognize you as a valued member of the press and a friendly member of the press. But you remember, if you try any of those got you questions, I've got my stick laying right here beside it, so make it fine.
And I'm within reach. Don't you worry about that. I'm happy to be here today. It's great to see everyone. Commissioner, always enjoy talking with you and catching up. We've crossed paths at quite a few agricultural events in 2025. It was a busy year, another busy year, it always is. So when you look back at 2025, what do you see? What does that mean for you from your perspective?
Well, I think to say, starting with the fourth quarter of 2024, it's been an incredibly busy year, an incredibly intensive year. And it started with, we talked about the lean, and it started with that initial response to the lean and how horrifying it was. But, I've got to give, first of all, the due to the Forest Service. They are always there when we have disasters, and it was no different this time. They were there clearing trees out of the roads, and everything you can imagine, anything that they were called on to do, they did. So never forget the Forest Service and their value to the people of North Carolina. And, then it just kept continuing, the response to the disaster, trying to make the partnerships one and to be able to do things. And then it got into the long-term disaster response, and which was kind of difficult. I mentioned going to the legislature to try to get the money for a disaster program, and I knew that $1.2 billion was going to choke them, and it did. But that was expected, so then we worked to try to piecemeal together the amounts of funds that we were going to need to be able to get back. We've had wildfire worries and then fighting wildfires. We had outbreaks of high-path avian influenza. We went through that period of high-path being found in milk, which was incredibly intense, especially working with USDA, FDA, and all of our partners to try to figure that out. So that was a pretty big scare. Trying to calculate the losses, the massive losses that we had in North Carolina, and I mentioned that we had Blake Brown first, and then Miss McAdams, who was another recognized economist working on that, and I knew that it was huge, but in the end, between the crop center disaster of the infrastructure, we were talking about $5 billion in losses at the farm gate level, and without a lot of help, there's no way that these people were going to make it through it. And we had started actually back in August talking about a disaster in the rest of North Carolina because of weather conditions. So when you rolled it all together, to tell you the truth, it was pretty daunting. But we started setting up disaster relief programs at the state level based on what we did with Hurricane Florence. And it was, very similar but very different. In Florence, we had livestock losses. Luckily this time, we didn't have a lot of livestock programs. And so that was kind of the premise of trying to set this up, but there's so much difference in the agriculture in the mountains and the rest of the state It's difficult to try to pinpoint exactly how we need to spread that help around, but I think based on what we have done when we had another tropical storm come through the mountains in 2022, we kind of blended all of that together to make it work, and we're still fine-tuning that today, getting checks out as quick as we could. And I think if you looked at the timeline, this didn't happen all at one time. You know, it started out early with a $200 million relief package for just Helene County. So we had to go back to the legislature and say, no, wait a minute, we know how bad this is, but the rest of the state is hurt too, so we need some help. So then we got $111 million for the rest of the state, and then we had to go back and say, wait a minute, that ain't enough. So then we got another, it was, I think in August, we finally got that last appropriation, bringing it to $445 million, and I'll never be able to thank our legislatures enough for what they did. I know we're the only state in Helene hit states that did anything disaster program-wise. I think we might be the only state in the nation that has a state disaster relief program. We can be proud of that here in North Carolina, and just everybody pulling together to get that done has been so heartwarming. So we're in that process of trying to get the rest of the state money out, and now go into the block grant. And for the first time, we're going to be able to do some things with this block grant program that we hadn't been able to do before, and that the FSA can't go there either. One of those being helping with timber losses. We lost a tremendous amount of timber in western North Carolina to Helene. We're going to be able to help these people out. I didn't realize it, but after I went up and did some surveying with Helene, I'm used to forestry being, we cut it, we plant it. And I got to the mountains and they explained to me up there, well, we can't do that. It's too steep, it's too hilly, we just can't replant. This is the one time in a generation harvest that we miss. So that kind of put things into a tailspin as far as how we could help these people. And we think we can come up to help that, but infrastructure, we've got to get these roads rebuilt, the bridges back in. And I never realized the magnitude of the landslides we have in the mountains until I saw that on Google Earth the other day. I mean, it's unbelievable how many landslides we have that cut roads into. So we've got to get all of this done and done in a hurry. We even had to get into housing people at the Western North Carolina Ag Center, and that's something we don't have expertise in. We had tried it once before in Lumberton, and it was a total train wreck because of the lack of organization that was handed down to us. So we kind of expected it this time, but we also added in housing people's pets with them at the center. Now, I was a big advocate for that because if I got to go somewhere, the first one in the truck is going to be my two dogs. So we did that too, and we got that done, but it was difficult. So, and it went all through the department. People don't realize that when the grocery stores are flooded, we got to put them back in business by inspection. When the gas tanks are getting water on them, we got to put them back in business through inspection. So there was no part of this Department of Ag that wasn't involved in that disaster, including delivering truckload after truckload after truckload of emergency food. So just when we got over one outbreak of avian influenza, we had another, this time in eastern North Carolina, and it involved putting down a lot of especially turkeys, and we've handled that. I can't say enough kudos to the vet division and the USDA for the speed and efficiency that they handled this, and so hopefully we're past that high outbreak stage now, and we're through with that. But the rest of the department has to go on. We have to put on a mountain state fair, a state fair, and using the resource stations for everything imaginable, from donations to feeding locations. So it has been difficult, but through it all, the people that work for the Department of Agriculture have performed, I mean, it's just amazing the things that they've been able to get done. So I hope we're going to be able to breathe a sigh of relief. And the list goes on and on, the things we've done, but we're going to breathe a sigh of relief and say, okay, it's going to get better. And so we'll take that attitude going into 2026 and do our best no matter what curveballs throw at us.
Let's hope not. You had dealt with a lot of issues in 2025, a lot of big issues. It's a year, definitely. So let's talk a little bit about this is something that you've spoken about for a long time. The importance of it, we all know, is absolutely critical for agriculture. Costs are continuing to go up. What are you hearing about the recently announced changes to how AWR, the adverse effect wage rate, will be calculated, the lawsuit in California, and also just the potential impact of it?
Well, you know, I see nothing that we have been able to accomplish in the past several years, 10, 15 years, that could have more of a positive impact on what we do in North Carolina than this. It's something we have all worked on for a long time with very little success. And I guess the moon and the stars lined up, and it is amazing how good this is. Rolling back the wages, and then doing something that I advocated for probably 20 years ago was to give a credit for housing in H-2A. If you use H-2A workers, we are federally required to furnish housing that is inspected for them. And it creates an inequity for American workers. Most American workers on the farm, you know, there's no housing requirement. So I advocated for it to try to bring the West Coast and the East Coast together, because California really does not want to have anything to do with housing workers. So I thought if we got a credit for the states that were using H-2A and providing housing, maybe that would bring them on board. Unfortunately, it didn't at that time, but now that is available too. So this is a milestone that we will remember for a long time if we hold it. The lawsuits that are coming out of California and some other states, I'm ready to go to the Supreme Court at any time. We're going to take it as far as we have to take it, but we have got to win this battle. You think about what we do in North Carolina with tobacco and specialty crops and all of the food things that we raise. And if the general public wants to point a finger at why grocery prices have elevated since 2020 very rapidly, our labor costs have gone nuts in H-2A since that period of time. And either we're going to pass that cost on in some way to the end product, or we're not going to be able to raise it, and we will import this food from somebody else in the world. So this is a milestone that will be recognized for a long time if we pull it off. Stand strong, support the Farm Bureau and the American Farm Bureau, because I'm assuming they probably will be leading this effort, and we can't thank them enough for that. So
that's one of our big issues. We hear it every year at every board meeting. It's all about labor, and this is incredibly critical. Well, let's talk a little bit about water. This is also another issue. You've talked a lot about water management, water storage. We just held a meeting actually at Farm Bureau with the Agriculture Water Work Group. So that focused on revisiting and updating a strategic plan for protecting agriculture water in our state. Now this plan, I guess, was completed back in 2011, and it's not been updated since, so a little out of date. Now you've been raising, Commissioner with labor and some of your other issues. Let's talk now about just the need for new ideas, to take new steps. What does that look like?
Well, you know, I go back to 2011, and I think that was the last time that we had a massive drought in North Carolina. And, you know, we were in all kinds of water savings measures across the state. And there was a bill introduced in the legislature that made all of us shudder. What that bill said, the state of North Carolina owns all water and will hold it in trust for its citizens. Now, this is just a complete 180-degree turnaround from what we had operated under for all these years, and that was riparian rights. But what it meant was that well that's on my farm, it ain't mine. That pond that's on my farm, it ain't mine. And the withdrawals that we had been making from rivers and creeks, you know, that was going to come to an end unless that was regulated. So we all got together and we figured out that they thought that agriculture was the major water user in North Carolina. So we set out to prove it wasn't true. And we did surveys, and we actually had NASA, National Agricultural Statistics Service, do the survey. And what it came back and said was, it's not ag that is the big water user in the state. It's the people that flush the toilets, water the lawn, wash the clothes, just everyday citizens. When you put all of these millions together, they were actually the big water users. So we did prove that with that water use survey, and it kind of calmed down. But then when you start moving millions of people into the state of North Carolina, when was the last time we built a major water reservoir in this state? Do you know the answer? Well, I have to know because it was the Randall Reservoir that was part of the Greensboro water supply. And it took 20 years from inception to completion to get that reservoir built. So if we started today to build us another big water reservoir for these millions of people in this state, we can't wait 20 years. So we got to figure out different things and how we can supply that water. But I was shudder to think if we went through another 2011, where we would be today. At that time, we only got down to a 30-day supply of water. And think how many more people live on that water supply now. So we got a little thinking to do, but we wanted to prove once again, it ain't us. We are more water conserving today than we've ever been in history. So we're doing our part in that, and that's what we've got to continue to put out there. This new water survey will take care of that. But not enough water has not been the biggest problems we've been doing in North Carolina over the past several years. It's been too much water and flooding. And I think it kind of came to a head back during Florence. It just so happened I had the Speaker of the House and the President Pro Tem and some other legislators on a helicopter, and we landed at Duplin County Airport. And about this time, Dale Murphy and Jeff Turner flew in their helicopter, and they were pretty disgusted with all of the flooding that was going on with the hogs and the chickens and stuff. So we kind of had a little meeting there, and we all agreed that we were going to sit down and work on flooding in North Carolina. We're not going to stop a Hurricane Florence from flooding this state. That much water, 30-some inches of water that falls like that, it ain't going to happen. But we can do things to stop flooding from 4-inch rains, 5-inch rains, and we haven't taken those steps in North Carolina, so we've been advocating for that. And it got to a pretty good point, and Congressman Rouser and Congressman Murphy have been having their water sermons, and we've had a lot of discussion. But right when it looked like we were getting it wound up, you know what stopped it? Flooding. Helene. All of the money, all of the talk, all of the discussion had to go toward Helene, so it kind of got sidetracked. But we have continued to drive this discussion more behind the scenes maybe than out front about what can we do with flooding in North Carolina. And I'm of the opinion that the development that we have seen, especially in the Piedmont of North Carolina, the I-40-85 corridor, and all this impervious surface, including roads, is adding to that problem of flooding in eastern North Carolina. So maybe we need to start thinking that way. How do we stop this water from leaving the Piedmont and going to eastern North Carolina? Zane and I have flown in helicopters and done surveys after many of the flood events. And one of them, we actually got on the Deep River that starts up about High Point and down through there. And we tracked that muddy red water all the way into eastern North Carolina. So we know that our water in the Piedmont is impacting and in eastern North Carolina. So the premise is, what can we do to stop some of the flooding that can occur in normal time? And we've got some ideas. The main one being parking water. We can park the water in swamps, sometimes in low-level areas of fields, if we manage this water correctly. And we're doing experiments now at Lake State Forest is one of the places that's funded, and we're experimenting there. And beyond that, I have another one of my big ideas to use farm ponds in North Carolina as a water storage area. If you take all of the thousands of ponds that we have in North Carolina for farm use, and you put additional storage in each pond by raising the emergency spillways and remodeling these ponds, and then being able to draw them down a foot or 2, 3 feet, 4 feet before a major event, we have created a reservoir to store water. So we now have a pilot program that we're working with DEQ on to do this. Part of it is going to be in the western Piedmont and part of it in eastern North Carolina. And we need to prove that this works. And there's no question it works, but to the extent that it works. So we have got to focus on water in North Carolina. It is a precious resource, but it can either be one way or the other, too much or too little. And so we'll continue to try to drive that process with our partners across the state.
Well, you've definitely got to be proactive, and you mentioned some of the programs with the ponds and whatnot. What about the STRAP program?
The STRAP program has been wonderful. We have been very reactive when it comes to flooding in North Carolina, and the STRAP program was actually designed to be a more forward-looking solution. After floods, we have to go in and we have to clean out the rivers and the streams to be able to prevent flooding. But STRAP is a long-term continuation project where we have to try to maintain these waterways being open all the time, and it partners with local government. And one of the things that we had seen in trying to institute that STRAP program was that it required a local match. Now, most local governments have two things they don't have: money to clean out streams and matching, and they don't have the personnel available to be able to do the paperwork on matches and all that stuff. So we went to the legislature and said, okay, let's do away with this match. We've been having trouble getting partners to come in and do this. So let's take the match away and give them more administrative help and see if it doesn't work. As soon as we took the match away, we've got plenty of partners now. And that partnership is amazing with what we've been able to do. And we've got additional, I think, $45 million that we're going to be able to put into the STRAP program on top of the money that has been used from the federal government to be able to clean these streams and waterways out. So that's another success story, and we've got to build on it.
Well, it's clear that investing in agriculture benefits everybody across the state. And if there's one thing I think that's been consistent about North Carolina agriculture through the years is its adaptability. You'd agree with that. It's ag research, for one thing. It's been been behind a lot of that adaptability, a lot of agricultural research in our area. We're very fortunate for all of that. So let's talk a little bit more about that. What are we doing today to invest in ag research, and Tell everyone why that's so important.
You know, I had a college professor, an economics professor, and he said, you know, you would think that the weather would be the determining factor in the success and failure of agriculture long term. And he said that's not true. It's agricultural policy that will determine that. But after all the years that I've been in agriculture, I've added one to it. It's agricultural research that has allowed us to become so productive in agriculture that we're feeding not only the United States, and you saw Michael Dorfman put that thing up that said that the public believes food is still affordable. It wouldn't be if we weren't so productive. So that research partnership that we have with the land-grant universities at the department, I think it works better than most of the models in the country. And so we've been able to do a lot of things through ag research. And the number that sticks in my mind is $1 invested in ag research returns $19 in economic activity. If I'm an investor, I want part of that. And we hope that we can convince the legislature to put even more money into ag research. We have been so lucky and I guess good over the past several years to renovate these ag research stations. And Teresa Lambert, who is now the director of research stations at the department, has done a wonderful job in being able to do this through equipment modernization, technology modernization, and we've got to continue to do that. I think we've invested over $20 million in the past 2 years into these research stations, and we've got to continue to do it. The problems never stop in ag, and ag research tries to iron out these problems. And most of all, we want to do the research and make sure that we make the mistake before it goes to a farmer. And believe me, that is an important thing that we do. And I think about all the varieties that have come through the research stations that we currently use on the farms and the development of production techniques. And it did get to the point a few years ago that I was ashamed that we were doing the research with technology that was 10 years behind. So we set out to modernize these research stations, and the first thing Dean Richard Linton and I did when he came in is we went to the legislature and asked for money to start this process. And it's been an ongoing process, and it's got to continue if we're going to continue to lead the nation.
Sure. Well, another piece of the puzzle when it comes to food production is farmland and farmland preservation. You've been very vocal about this as well. We see it losing farmland at an alarming rate, and it's very clear in this area around us in North Carolina. So let's talk about the need of farmland preservation efforts and how everyone can really take part in this.
Yeah. I guess that's something that I brought with me from Brown Summit to be commissioner. Is Sharon and I have lived in the shadow of Greensboro all these years, and we have seen all the development that's gone on farmlands. In fact, at the height of my farming career, I was operating 12 farms, including ours, and it was spread out about 12 miles from Brown Summit to Summerfield. And of those 12 farms today, there are 5 of them, including us, that are still in ag production just in the 20 years that I have been in commission. And it's continuing every day. We have offers from all across the country to be able to sell that farmland. We have too many tears and too many quarts of blood invested in this, and I never want to see my farm become a residential development. So we have the Farmland Preservation Trust Fund in the department, and we are actively seeking out farmers and landowners that are willing to put permanent easements on that land and never have it developed. That doesn't mean it can't be sold, but the people that own the land now are cashing in on some of that high-end residential development real estate money for the future. But in the future, that land can be sold, but it's got to be sold as a farm. Never can be developed. I'm proud to say that we have protected over 42,000 acres of farmland in North Carolina since its inception. And now, see Dan Gerlach sitting back there, and he happened to be in the governor's office when we started this, and was instrumental in getting money to get it started, and it's been a tremendous success. But now we're right at the top of the nation in the disappearance of farmland. And there are two worries in this. I do worry that we could meet that tipping point when our production increases can't keep up with the disappearance of that land. I don't know when it would happen, but it could happen. But I worry even more when we start taking all of this forest and farmland out of North Carolina. We've changed the makeup of this state. We've always had one of the most beautiful states in the nation, green, open, tourist attraction, but maybe not so in the future if we don't slow this down. And it's a hard sell in the legislature, believe me. Grocery shelves are full. People are still eating today. So we got to try to get funding for this, and it's hard. There are people, the developers and people out there, they don't want to see this happen. They want it to be wide open. But I mentioned before, this is a private property issue. And while I would hope that people would not sell the farmland into development, sometimes it's necessary. And I'm the biggest believer in private property rights you'll ever see. If you have bought it, paid for it, and you got the deed to it, you need to have the right to manage it as you need to manage it. So that's the premise we operate on. We are trying to offset that development right difference in farmland with this trust fund money. But everybody knows that land values continue to escalate. You know, you're taking a point in time and taking and cashing out. And then 10 years later, you may see, well, I could have gotten more money, but that's not what this is about. We're giving you that opportunity to cash out and do something that is really, really good to the state of North Carolina.
Well, that takes us to the farm bill. So we almost sound like a broken record every year. We didn't get a farm bill, or we didn't get a farm bill. We didn't get one last year. So thoughts for the next year, and what can people do? How can they help this along?
Well, I look at the farm bill as a roadmap and a policy that sets policy for the whole nation. And some of the most important things are risk management. How are we able to manage the loads that come with farming and be able to farm again? You know, food is always a big part of the farm bill, and people view some of the food benefits as maybe not so good, but they actually are markets for farm products. We deliver millions and millions and millions of dollars of food at our food distribution unit, and they go to feeding institutions across the state. So having it linked together, I think in some ways is good. Of course, it creates an argument. Every time we start talking about SNAP benefits and farms and putting it together, I don't know how you separate it. But we have got to have a farm bill to have a firm policy of what direction is this country going to take when it comes to ag. Exports. How are we going to address tariffs when they hurt agriculture? President Trump has been good about helping when tariffs create bad situations for farmers, but that can't go on forever. So what we need is open markets for our agricultural products. We need risk management, and we need a regulatory structure that stays the hell out of our business. That's what we need. And if we get down out of the farm bill, we'll be good.
Well said, well said. yes, our farm bill would be nice. Let's get that thing going. And then you talked about a lot of things so far today. You know what's going on across the state. You have people everywhere. You've been everywhere. So you look back at 25. What do you see going forward? That crystal ball, what do you see for 26?
Okay. Dr. Dorfman he did try to put lipstick on the pig. We are looking right now at a stagnant situation where it's hard to pencil in a profit on anything outside of specialty crops, and that includes tobacco. There is some profit out there in tobacco, and our specialty crops I think will do very good. But the good news is 75% of all the farm gate receipts in this state come from animal agriculture. And that is in pretty doggone good shape right now, including the cattle industry that for years and years has kind of been an afterthought in North Carolina. But now you look in a pasture, you see the cows out there, and that's a bar of gold, every one of them. So that is looking up. So we can weather this. I think I went to the Joint Grain Conference, and I heard some economists talking down there into things that made a lot of sense to me. Now, they're not going to be easy to do, but we are kind of doing most of what he said right now in North Carolina. He said, grain commodities, there is a glut of them all over the world. And he went on to explain, and I had never thought about it, but when China bought Syngenta, that gave them access to the very top level GMO crops that there were in the world. And before that, they had encouraged their farmers and wouldn't let their farmers raise GMO crops. So now they're in the technology business, and if you look at the trend line of when they started using GMO crops, it's straight up. And if you look at the import line of the commodities they were importing, it's down. So that has had a huge effect on the amount of commodities that are in the trade right now. But what this economist was advocating, he said, you know, we need to forget exporting grain in the United States. What we need to do is we need to be exporting that grain as protein. So that's what we do in North Carolina. Now, how we create that much market for protein worldwide, I don't know. But there is a lot more value in the price of beef and pork and poultry than there is corn, beans, and cotton. And, you know, this past year in the fall, I called a good friend of mine in eastern North Carolina that's a big cotton farmer. And he was in the cotton picker, and I said, how things going? He said, I am harvesting the best cotton crop that I have ever grown, and I'm losing my butt on every pound that I put in a bale. He said, I mean, he went on to explain the amount of loss that he was taking on the cotton, and that is not sustainable for sure. So I don't know how we expand protein production in North Carolina beyond what we are now, but that's what the man said, and I believe it's true.
Well, you covered a lot. So you looked back on 25, looked ahead to 26. We've talked about the farm bill, labor, water, farmland preservation. Is there anything else that's on your mind? Anything that keeps you up at night, or anything that makes you happy about agriculture in North Carolina?
I sleep well at night knowing the staff that I have can handle about anything, and I sleep well at night because I know the partnerships and we have in the state. So a sleepless night is not a long thing for me because the crisis comes up, we go handle the crisis, and we move on. And so that's the way I have to approach it, and so far it's been successful.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you this morning, Commissioner. We appreciate your passion for agriculture and all that you do.
Well, I do appreciate that, and it's just something that helping people is rewarding. And I think there are a lot of people in this state that have that attitude. And, you know, I think back on the partnerships that we have built over the past several years in disasters. Fabulous on Mission being one, and being able to count on them to feed people when they need it most. And I think back to even when Hurricane Helene came through. When I went to the little community of Spruce Dwelling, before I went, it started on Sunday afternoon. My son was the Methodist minister in Spruce Pine for 6 or 7 years, so we knew a lot of people up there. They only had one form of communication, I think, in the whole town, and people had to walk to the fire station to get a line out. I think it was about 2 o'clock that afternoon when my son called me. He said, "Do you know what's going on in the mountains?" I said, "Well, I've got an overall view, but I don't know how bad it is." These people went to Jeremy and asked him to call me to tell me how bad it was. They had no food, no water, no grocery stores. They were cut off because of the roads. So I started making plans to load our helicopters the next morning with food and water and head that way. But before that happened, Baptists on Men cut their way into Spruce Pine. And by 8 o'clock that night, they were feeding people. And things got better. But that was replicated all over those mountains up there. And it's happened before with hurricanes and tropical storms. So the faith-based organizations that we have in North Carolina, we've got the best. So I just hope everybody supports them, and we've been able to build partnerships with them to deliver food to them when they need it. And going back to Florence, everything was flooded. Wilmington was cut off, 40 was flooded, 95 was flooded. So they called and wanted us to deliver food to Wilmington, and I couldn't figure out how we would do it and how they were going to get there. But the next morning, I took a helicopter to Wilmington. They were there, they were set up, and our food trucks had got there some way. So those are the kinds of humane stories that come out of all these disasters, and we're all better for it.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for your leadership, sir. Commissioner.
I think it is about lunchtime, and Greg, are you coming up? Thank you, Linda. Didn't have to use my stick out one time.
All right. I hope everybody has had a wonderful time here. Commissioner, I just thank you for always hosting such a fabulous ag development forum. It's always packed with timely topics, important topics, and high quality speakers. So we just appreciate all that you do and all that your team does. Let's give the Commissioner and the Department of Ag a big round of applause. The Chief Administrative Officer with Ag Carolina Farm Credit, and I would, if you would, please bow and we will say a prayer before lunch. Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you for this day. I thank you for all the many blessings that you provide each and every one of us on a daily basis. I thank you for allowing us to come to Raleigh to the Southern Farm Show and the Ag Development Forum, where we've had the opportunity to learn together, to network with each other, and also to lean on each other to help strengthen the ag industry. Dear Lord, I just pray that you remind our farmers on a daily basis of just how special and how loved they are. I pray that when times get tough, which we all know they have been, that our farmers just are reminded of your goodness and reminded of the strong support system that they have around them. Dear Lord, as we enter another growing season, I pray that you will help guide our farmers and our farm families and help lead them. And dear Lord, we are just praying for a successful year. As we look forward to enjoying a meal together, I thank you for the farmers that grew the food. I thank you for those that prepared it. And dear Lord, I just pray that you will take this food to the nourishment of our bodies and our bodies to your service. In your Son's holy and precious name I pray. Amen.
Skipper, I think you know I've been a member of the card credit system a long time, and I want to thank you and all the people that supported in the state of financing and your understanding more than anything else. So thank you. Well, there's one thing I probably didn't do. I made one little mistake when I talked about the housing of the pets with the people. I said the first in the truck would be my dog, and my wife kind of tried that. I assumed everyone knew she would be driving the truck. So I